My name is Sherry Anderson, and today we are talking about the principles of genetics and genomics. This is for Rasmussen School of Nursing, and it is for deliverable 4. I created this pedigree from the CDC. They have this awesome tool that allows you to put in your information in your family history. And so I have myself on there, and then you can see above, I have my mother and my father, and both of them are highlighted in green, showing that they have a specific disease. Above them, I have my maternal grandparents as well as my paternal. I don't know anything about my paternal grandparents, but I do have information for my maternal. This slide is also just another really cool tool that I found on the CDC concerning the pedigree breakdown. And it shows the names, the relationships, if this person is still living. And then it shows what disease processes they had and what age they got them at. So on my maternal side, my grandpa Bill, his real name is William. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer a few years ago. He didn't have any indication for genetic counseling. His parents had also passed away when he was young. And so he developed the prostate cancer at a much later age. He didn't smoke. I know he didn't smoke, but he did have a habit of eating a lot of processed meats. And he also had a very sedentary job, as well as he was a male. The chances for prostate cancer run in males, and he was slightly overweight. So on my maternal grandmother's side, Lillian, her and my grandpa Bill were married for many years, I think 60 or 70 years. My grandmother didn't have the best diet as well. I think some of their diet choices were just attributed to the time period in which they grew up. So my grandmother had a diet that had a lot of processed meat in it and a lot of fatty foods. And her strokes were ischemic strokes. And so they think that she just had some plaque buildup in her diet from just all the years of eating all of those fatty foods. She was sedentary as far as she didn't have a time every day where she would work out. She moved around her house, she cleaned her house, she did those things, but she didn't make any time for physical working out. She did develop Alzheimer's after she started having the strokes. And at that time, we started looking into if it was possible that the strokes and the Alzheimer's kind of had something in common. My grandmother didn't have indications for genetic testing. Her strokes were considered to have been brought on. It's what a quote unquote is a normal age for that disease process. And again, I don't have information on my paternal grandparents. I didn't meet them. My father barely remembers them. He was raised by like a cousin's brother, someone kind of very distant from the family, and they didn't have any health history either. So there wouldn't have been any need for genetic counseling. My father, Alan Spearman, he developed prostate cancer in his 50s. Now, even though he didn't have genetic need or a need to do genetic counseling because he didn't really know his parents. My father was a very heavy cigarette smoker, heavy, maybe 2 to 3 packs a day. He would consume a lot of alcohol. He never much paid attention to his diet. And what we're finding is that people who smoke have a way higher increased chance of developing prostate cancer than non-smokers do. My mother developed breast cancer in her 50s. She wouldn't have had a need for genetic counseling before that because she was the first person in our family to develop breast cancer. So we had no other familiar history of breast cancer. She was greater than 50. She did have menstruation before age 12. She started her menstruation very early. My mom was not a very sedentary person. She's always very go, go, go. She was pretty physically fit. She didn't do high intensive activities or aerobic activities, but she wasn't really overweight. She did, however, consume alcohol. She consumed a lot of alcohol. And one of the things that people are finding is that alcohol consumption and women does lead to increased chances of developing breast cancer. And here we have me. I'm Sherry. I'm 36. I do have a need for genetic counseling, and that is because I have a family history of breast cancer. And so, even though my mom was the first person in our family to have breast cancer, the risk is there, and that makes it part of my family history. So, we do genetic counseling for breast cancer. We can test for the BRCA gene mutations. And then there's also other mutations that you can check for with breast cancer risk because some of those are inherited and some are not inherited. I myself, I do perform monthly self breast exams. I eat a diet high in fruits and high in fiber and high in vegetables. I try to limit my alcohol consumption. And last year at my yearly checkup, when I had talked to my doctor about my mother's breast cancer, she suggested that I start getting yearly mammograms at 40, and that is because I do have a family history. And some doctors will say, okay, you don't need them every year. You can get them every couple years. You don't need them every year until you're like 45, 50. Well, for me, it was recommended that we just start getting them yearly. So on my 40th birthday, that's what I plan to do.